Many of you have probably heard of intelligence quotient, also known as IQ tests. First created more than a century ago, the tests are still widely used today to measure an individual's mental agility and ability. The tests claim to measure your intelligence, but does it really show how smart you are, and could we trust the results? Let's find out. Pum pum pum. It all started more than a century ago in France. In the early 1900s, dozens of intelligence tests were developed in Europe and America, claiming to offer unbiased ways to measure a person's cognitive ability. The first of these tests was developed by French psychologist Alfred Binet, who was commissioned by the French government to identify students who would face the most difficulty in school. The result in 1905 Binet-Simon scale became the basis for modern IQ testing. Ironically, Binet actually thought that IQ tests were inadequate measures for intelligence, pointing to the test's inability to properly measure creativity or emotional intelligence. During World War I, the army needed a way to evaluate and assign recruits to appropriate tasks. This led to the development of several mental tests by Robert Yerkes. 1.75 million men were tested in total, making the results the first mass-produced written tests of intelligence. After the war, positive publicity promoted by army psychologists helped to make psychology a respected field. Intelligence tests were developed and became widely used in schools and industry. Since the early 20th century, raw scores on IQ tests have increased in most parts of the world. The phenomenon of rising raw score performance was named the Flynn effect, after James R. Flynn, the author who did the most to bring this phenomenon to the attention of psychologists. While IQ tests are generally considered to measure some forms of intelligence, they may fail to serve as an accurate measure of broader definition of human intelligence, inclusive of creativity and social intelligence. For this reason, psychologist Wayne Witten argued that their construct validity must be carefully qualified and not be overstated. According to Witten, IQ tests are valid measures of the kinds of intelligence necessary to do well in academic work. But if the purpose is to assess intelligence in a broader sense, the validity of IQ tests is questionable. Some scientists have disputed the value of IQ as a measure of intelligence altogether. In the book The Mismeasure of Man 1981, evolutionary biologist Stephen Jay Gould compared IQ testing with the now discredited practice of determining intelligence via craniometry, arguing that both are based on the fallacy of reification, our tendency to convert abstract concepts into entities. At the same time, one US study in 1995 used IQ tests to look at the effectiveness of a particular type of training for managing attention deficit hyperactivity disorder (ADHD). The researchers used IQ tests to find out whether the training was effective in improving the concentration and executive functioning of children with ADHD. The use of IQ tests in a range of settings and the continuing disagreement over their validity and even morality highlights not only the immense value society places on intelligence, but also our desire to understand and measure it. The idea that intelligence can be measured by IQ tests alone is a fallacy according to the largest single study into human cognition, which found that it comprises of at least 3 distinct mental traits: short-term memory, reasoning, and verbal component. IQ tests can be useful as a part of an overall assessment of the whole person. Scores from intelligence tests are estimates of intelligence. Unlike, for instance, distance or mass, a concrete measure of intelligence cannot be achieved given the abstract nature of the concept of intelligence. So even if IQ tests are not ideal, have some biases, and do not really measure your intelligence but only some cognitive abilities, they still could be used for good and be useful to get some more information about ourselves, the way we think, our perception, and reasoning. And that's been it. Thank you for watching this video. If you find it interesting and useful, smash it a like, subscribe to this channel for more videos, ring the bell, and I will see you next episode. Bye bye.